Yeah, let's get right into it. Welcome to the story where coast to coast, everything is bad. Not really. The roads, though, are a mess thanks to winter storms. On the left, we've had several local highway closures, including practically all roads to Mount Hood. That's our local weather there. Highway 26, we should note, has reopened, but it was so bad earlier that the ski resorts on Mount Hood shut down for the entire day. On the right, you have the chaos in Virginia. Drivers stuck on a snowy highway for more than 24 hours. In some cases, that is a nightmare. And that includes U.S. Senator Tim Kaine. That's a photo of him showing up to the Capitol exhausted after a 26-hour commute, fueled by, he said, 1 orange and a 16-ounce Dr. Pepper. Oddly specific. There was also NBC correspondent Josh Lederman, who was stranded with his dog. And this woman on Twitter filmed her TV. She had my same reaction this morning. She could only focus on the dog. The dog's name, by the way, Josh later said was Jonas. He's fine, as is Josh. Both are home tonight. Very good to hear. My name is Maggie Vespa, and I'm here after the weather and all the airport chaos delayed my return to KGW for one day, but I had it easy compared to a lot of the people you just saw, as you can tell. This, if you're not familiar, is The Story. It's the show where we really want to hear from you. So email thestory@kgw.com. Use that hashtag TheStoryKGW. We want your takes, the hottest of takes. Give them to us. And with that said, let's get right to our big story. Cue the hot takes. The reason we are kicking off the show so weather-centric with the weather video off the top is because these storms are historic. Yes, they've caused problems, of course, but they're also becoming more and more severe and more common. And in some realms, they're changing how we as a society live our lives. They have to. So let's start this conversation with the true expert. We have Chief Meteorologist Matt Zaffino standing by kindly. And Matt, we wanted to bring you in specifically to talk about the Mount Hood part of all of this, because I'm a layman. You're an expert both in weather and in skiing. And ski resorts shutting down because of snow just sounds kind of insane to me. Does it to you?
Yeah, you know, you made a good point earlier about how this is changing our behavior. It changed your behavior. Your travel got delayed by a day. It changed my behavior this morning because I was going to go skiing this morning and take advantage of all the new snow, but I couldn't get there. You know, the gorge wasn't completely open yet, at least Highway 35 up and around that way. Couldn't go Highway 26, so I didn't ski today. Talk about changing behavior, right? This is unusual. We don't usually see snow close ski areas. It sounds kind of, you know, like an oxymoron, right? But check out Timberline right now, snowing again. There's only been 4 inches new today, but in the last week, Timberline 54 inches new. And yesterday was the day. I mean, we had 25, 26 inches new snow at all the ski areas, even Ski Bowl, 51 inches new in the last 7 days with about 32 inches new in 24 hours, doubling their snowpack in 7 days. So that's how intense this snowfall has been. It really has been remarkable. Some other comments for you, numbers on this. At one point yesterday, and late Sunday or Monday, we had snowfall rates of 8 inches every 3 hours. Think about that. That would be 2 feet in 9 hours if that kept up over that entire time period. That's really heavy snowfall. This comment from the manager, the mountain manager at Ski Bowl, saying, hey, most intense snowfall he can remember in the 34 years he's been there. He's seen 8 feet in 8 days, but this was wilder. This was more intense. So it is unusual to have the roads closed and therefore close the ski areas. And I talked to John Burton at Timberline about that.
When was the last time Timberline had to close because of too much snow or you know, the roads being closed?
It happens, you know, it's not that uncommon. Too much snow, that's less common. I was talking to my colleague this morning, and he was thinking maybe 98 were something that, you know, reflected something similar to what's going on today. Yeah, it's you know, there has been a lot of snow, but it's more about the access right now.
That's interesting because that winter of 98, 99 set snowfall records in North America here in the Northwest. We're showing you video from the vault of what happened on Mount Hood in November of 2006. That's when a debris flow or a glacial outburst basically overwhelmed the bridge, the Highway 35 bridge over White River, the White River Canyon, and demolished it and deposited boulders to a depth of 8 feet on top of that bridge. And that closed Mount Hood Meadows, but that's because it was cut off because of the roads, both directions there for a while. That's the only time in recent memory that I can remember the areas being completely shut down for a day at the beginning or in the middle of the ski season because of weather and road conditions. And that was extreme. And that one, by the way, was not a rain on snow event or a snow on rain event. That was a rain on dirt event. We didn't have much snowpack at that point. So what happened is we had intense rainfall in November. It hit those really steep dirt side canyons of Upper White River, and that all just came barreling down and wiped out the highway there, which is basically little more than a speed bump when you get a big debris flow like that, barreling down any river like that, Maggie. So yeah, this is unusual. A lot of people want to tie this to climate change. You need to do attribution studies to be definitive about that, but it certainly does seem like we're seeing more and more extreme events. That said, this is a La Nina winter, and we expected, other forecasters, other meteorologists and climatologists expected to get a lot of variability and a lot of wild weather. We typically do in a La Nina, and it has delivered so far after a little bit of a slow start. But yeah, it's been wild, and like you said, I'm sure it's going to continue to change our behavior.
It has been wild. And by the way, when we logged on to our morning meeting, all of us on Zoom, and I saw you sitting in your house, not up on the mountain, enjoying the ski season, my heart hurt for you, Matt.
Oh, I appreciate that, Maggie. Yeah. I actually told our boss yesterday, hey, if I'm on the morning, I won't be on the morning meeting because I'm going to go skiing. But there I was.
There you are. Well, we appreciate the expertise, Matt. Thank you so much, as always. So if any of us are tempted to bemoan our weather-related luck this week, let's once again get that reality check from Virginia. Such a mess. Snow and ice stranding hundreds of drivers, including, yes, U.S. senators and dogs, but also elderly people and people with babies, so on and so forth. Some were out there for more than 24 hours, running out of gas, running out of power. A lot of them didn't have food on them. Right now, we are not seeing any reports of anyone getting hurt from all of this, thank goodness. But our team got to talking on that meeting with Matt, who was not skiing. People out east were clearly caught off guard by this, and officials said that storm ramped up really fast. Still, it was forecasted. They knew that was coming. Unfortunately, not enough people took it seriously, and officials in Portland told us that sounds really familiar. Time now for another trip into the KGW Vault, taking us back to the winter of 2016. Remember this? That epic, fast-moving snow and ice storm produced pure mayhem here. This is 2016. School buses at the time filled with little kids got stuck. People abandoned their cars on Portland's highways. And later they demanded to know, hey, Portland, where was the salt? Such a controversy, such memories. Lovely. Well, to that question about salt, or frankly any other mitigation measures, officials said the same thing here that their East Coast counterparts are saying there tonight. That storm was too strong and it moved too fast. And yes, you could salt the roads ahead of time, but truly anyone on them would still have been in danger. So what to do? One answer, they say, is emergency alerts. This is an example of the kind of alert officials have sent out recently during storms, I should say. Portland's Bureau of Emergency Communications sent me this example in which they, quote, strongly urge all residents to stay indoors and not travel due to ice. As you can imagine, that wording, that really direct wording, basically orders urging you, is no accident. In the aftermath of the 2016 storm that we just showed you, officials basically rewrote a lot of their emergency alerts to be more direct because these storms are more dangerous.
We have decided over the last number of years that we needed to be more direct and set expectations as clearly as possible for folks before they head out on the road. So that means that sometimes we're not always giving you the best news. Sometimes we are telling folks it's not great out there. You need to stay home if you can. And primarily what we try to do is really make it clear to folks that our roads during snow and ice are treated primarily for our emergency responders first and foremost, and then for transit. And everyone else is served after that.
So some of our viewers will say that shift in verbiage sounds kind of familiar. And you're right. A few weeks ago, we marked 6 months since Oregon's deadly heat wave, the one that killed close to 100 people. And officials told us in the wake of that tragedy, they're using stronger wording in their emergency alerts, also tied to heat. Phrases like stay inside and heat kills. But to be clear, officials know there's only so much they can do. Our weather is getting more and more severe. In a lot of cases, it's getting deadly, and the climate crisis is here. The last few weeks in Portland aren't even among the worst examples. We all know that, not by a long shot. But despite that, we still had tragedy. 76-year-old Henry Steele was found dead of hypothermia after visiting the VA hospital in Southwest Portland. And we told you last night, multiple people who are unhoused were badly burned by fires they lit to try and stay warm. All of this as officials struggled to open warming shelters for the homeless, not because they didn't have the space, but because they didn't have enough volunteers to run them. COVID, combined with the holidays, made finding people really tough. So in short, our weather is getting more dangerous, and our officials are doing everything they can to keep up and keep you informed. What can you do? They say you can heed those emergency alerts, take forecasts seriously, and have emergency supplies ready to go in your cars and your home. Finally, if you're so inclined, some say, call elected leaders. Let them know you want more done to curb this crisis. Vote for whomever you think will get that done, because at this rate, all we're doing is struggling to dodge the bullets. Let's pivot now to something coming up on Thursday, and that's the anniversary of the January 6th insurrection, when supporters of President Trump stormed the U.S. Capitol trying to overturn the election results. And we have some coverage planned throughout the week on this topic, but we want to start tonight with a story that we really think is worth your time. The Seattle Times is reporting 3 Washington state lawmakers used taxpayer money to attend an election conspiracy conference put on by the MyPillow CEO, Mike Lindell. This conference happened in August. Lindell, a Trump ally, used the event to falsely claim the election was stolen by Trump. And the Washington legislators who attended, again on the taxpayers' dime, are all Republicans. State Representative Robert Sutherland of Granite Falls, State Rep Brad Klippert of Kennewick, and State Rep Vicki Kraft of Vancouver. Since she's in our viewing area, let's focus on her. Kraft has been in the state legislature since 2017, representing the 17th district. That is that purple area on that map. You can see it includes East Vancouver, Mill Plain, and the outlying areas to the north. Now, Kraft was pretty outspoken about attending Lindell's conference. She has by no means hid this. She tweeted this photo from it with Steve Bannon, former President Trump's chief political strategist, who, by the way, is facing charges for refusing to cooperate with the congressional investigation into January 6th. And Kraft told the Seattle Times in an email that she went to the event, quote, to learn more about what a full forensic audit process looks like, how hackers could hack into an election system, and to meet other legislators working on this issue. She went on to say, the conference helped me accomplish those objectives, end quote. Months before that conference, on January 6th, Kraft wrote on Facebook, quote, I believe there are enough valid questions about the integrity of the election process, how ballots were tallied and reported, that as a lawmaker, you would have to question and reject the results and the electoral votes being counted today. Once again, there is no evidence of any voter fraud, any hacking, or any other discrepancies in the 2020 presidential election. None. Notably, Kraft is now running for Congress in Southwest Washington, challenging sitting Congresswoman Jamie Herrera Beutler in the Republican primary. Herrera Beutler was one of just 10 House Republicans who voted to impeach Trump after the insurrection. And she's been outspoken against extremism in her party. In fact, here is what she told us last February.
I can tell you I'm not going anywhere. My goal is to just reestablish who we are based on the principles we've always espoused. I'm not going to let people push me out who say because I didn't swear fealty to a personality that means I'm no longer a Republican. No, I actually think we should turn that a bit and say, prove to us you understand the values of the Republican Party and you want to fight for them. Defending the Constitution tends to be chief top of there. But time will tell. I can't control what other people are going to do. And I do think we're at an inflection point. I do think we're in a place we haven't been, at least certainly in a generation.
So we reached out to Herrera Beutler's campaign for a response to this new Seattle Times report about her challenger, but we haven't heard back. Washington's primary is happening on August 2nd, and Oregon's is May 17th. And speaking of, as one candidate officially launches her campaign for Oregon's next governor.
I'm Christine Drazen. I'm a small-town girl.
Another candidate is defending his campaign with a 102-page response to questions about where he lives.
Some may wonder if Oregon's home, why didn't you vote in Oregon in 2020?
I could have voted in Oregon. I could have voted in New York.
When the story continues. Welcome back. Keep sending in those questions and comments to the story at kgw.com or use that hashtag #TheStoryKGW on Twitter. I missed it so much during the holidays. It's really nice to see your comments coming in. Let's turn to politics now. You saw it in the tease before the break. Oregon's race for governor just got more crowded. And frankly, we didn't think that was possible, but it's true. Okay, tonight, another Republican has thrown their hat in the ring for this race. And unlike most years, our political expert says the GOP might have a chance in Oregon. Here's Pat Doris.
I am officially announcing my candidacy for governor of the great state of Oregon.
Christine Drazen is the minority leader in the Oregon House of Representatives. She understands how politics work in Oregon, that Democrats have dominated the governor's office for 30 years, and that winning means convincing enough Portland area voters that you are the change they're looking for. She began by trashing the Democrats already running.
I looked at the Democrats, the ultra-liberal, the so-called moderate, the carpetbagger from New York, and I knew, like all of you know, that Oregon cannot survive another 4 years of this.
Until now, that would be considered wishful thinking by most political insiders in Oregon, but our expert Len Bergstein said this year is different.
People are very frustrated. Voters generally are unhappy with their situation, unhappy with the direction of the state, unhappy with leadership, and they attribute that to democratic flaws and failings. And they're looking, I think, to kind of take it out on somebody and maybe bring somebody new into the race. The question is whether Christine Drazen can get through her own primary.
Several other high-profile Republicans are already in the race, including Salem physician Bud Pierce, political consultant Bridget Barton, and the mayor of Sandy, Stan Pulliam. Drazen offered a middle-of-the-road message today, saying that she would help clean up Portland, get tough on crime while supporting police, get all kids back in school, and cut taxes on small businesses and families. But today was mostly about introducing herself to the state and trying to persuade voters who may be willing to consider someone other than a Democrat for the first time in a long time that she is their candidate.
I am Christine Drazen. I'm a small-town girl. I have devoted my life to respecting people, to helping people, to serving others, and I am running for governor of the state of Oregon.
And that was Pat Doris reporting. So if we can fit them all on our screen there, yeah, I think we got them all in. More than 24 people have said they're running for governor of Oregon at this point. This is a look at each person we could find a photo for, so it's not even all of them. And we got them on our screen, as I said. Pat mentioned the Republican frontrunners in his piece. On the Democratic side, notable names include House Speaker Tina Kotek, State Treasurer Tobias Reed, and former New York Times columnist Nicholas Kristoff. Former State Senator Betsy Johnson is also running, unaffiliated, so not part of any political party. And she has outraised every other candidate so far as fundraising goes. She's expected to get a lot of support. Now, zeroing in on Kristoff, he was referenced in that piece too. He's making a lot of headlines recently over whether he's actually even allowed to run for governor. A couple of weeks ago, the Secretary of State's office asked him for more evidence that he meets the residency requirements. And it's all because he voted in New York in 2020. Not in Oregon, in New York. And the state constitution says you have to be a resident for 3 years before you can run for governor of Oregon. Well, when they asked for more evidence, I really hope they meant it, because Kristoff's campaign just issued a 102-page response arguing that he is, in fact, a resident. His legal team reiterated a lot of the same points they've made before, that Kristoff has always considered Yamhill, Oregon, his home, that he's owned property there since the 90s and has spent a lot of time in Oregon over the past few years. It also includes an affidavit from Kristoff himself with the quote, "I have also long spoken of wanting to be cremated when I die so that my ashes can be spread on the family farm and on the Pacific Crest Trail in Oregon." That is very specific, a little bit dark. We asked Kristoff about this controversy back in October when he announced his candidacy.
Some may wonder if Oregon's home, why didn't you vote in Oregon in 2020?
I could have voted in Oregon. I could have voted in New York. If I'd been a more calculating Politico, I would have. But at the end of the day, I could have done so in either place. And I think that's a distraction from these real crises that are afflicting people around the state.
And some of your opponents may take this and challenge it in court. I mean, how much of a distraction will it be when you want to talk about some of these other issues?
I'll have to leave it to them to decide. I mean, I think they'd probably rather talk about that than talk about the fact that we have fourth worst homelessness in the country, the second worst unhoused population in the country, and so other folks may well raise it, but I am an Oregonian, period.
So the Secretary of State's office told us Shemia Fagan could decide as soon as this week on Kristoffs' eligibility. We'll let you know when that happens. However, if she does let him run, this issue probably won't go away completely. You can kind of picture what the attack ads will say. Here's our political analyst, Len Bergstein, once again.
Politically, what will happen is the folks who want to stop Kristoffs' campaign will challenge him in his campaign because they want to get him to talk about this for the next couple of weeks and months, rather than talking about the things he wants to talk about why he's the right person for Oregon at this particular time. So they're hoping as a tactic to get the voters to focus on that aspect and to force him to spend his time on that.
Just to reiterate, because we get a lot of questions about this, the primary election is on May 17th. It's about 5 months away. The top candidates from each party will advance to the general election. That's on November 8th, 2022. We'll be right back. Welcome back. It's time for a viewer question now on a topic that we've been covering for years. A viewer named C wrote in and asked, what happened to redirecting some of the funding to mental health services? They are preventative and more cost effective than paying for police. See, great question. So actually very timely. The Tigard Police Department just expanded a program that sends out a mental health clinician along with an officer to de-escalate certain situations. It's a partnership between clinicians from LifeWorks Northwest and then police in Tigard, Tualatin, Sherwood, and King City. Mental health professionals offer everything from crisis response to follow-up care. Now, if this program sounds kind of familiar, probably because it is very familiar. In the last couple of years, various police departments have been hiring mental health professionals and clinicians to assist police officers in responding to certain calls. Case in point, in Marion and Polk counties, the mobile crisis response team consists of a police officer or a deputy and a mental health professional. Vancouver Police launched a partnership with CMAR Community Services Northwest to add 6 full-time mental health responders, 6, to assist officers in mental health related calls. And Portland Police Bureau partners with Cascadia Project Respond for their behavioral health response teams, which includes an officer and a mental health professional. And then, of course, also in Portland, we have the Portland Street Response, which is a team of paramedics and mental health experts who respond to nonviolent calls. That team launched in Lentz about a year ago, and it's supposed to expand citywide in March, thanks to new funding from the Portland City Council. All right, keep sending in those questions and comments to this story at KGW.com. We're going to finish the show next. We lamented over Matt's lost ski day for so long that we have to end the show with that. Thank you guys so much for joining us for this story on this Tuesday night. Pick up your phone and follow us on Twitter, and you can always email the story at KGW.com. That is the end of this show. Laurel Porter is standing by with the news at 6:30.